So I'd like to please welcome Huzaifa and Vijay. Guys, take it away.
All right. So, hi guys. We are from Tiny Mogul Games. Like Anand said, I am Huzaifa Arab. I am game designer. Hello.
Can you guys hear him?
Can you guys hear this? Okay. I'm game designer for a cricket match.
I'm the game designer for Dadi vs. Jellies, as well as Shiva, the time bender.
So we're here to talk about level design, metrics, and the kind of lessons we had. So I would like to start off with the first part, which I would be taking you through. So cricket match is a game that is based on match 3, but it has a lot of cricket-based rule sets and what we call fiction. The game essentially gives you a grid of balls where you match balls to score runs. The longer your chain, the more runs you get. You get a target and you get a certain amount of balls, and you have to make sure you don't get bowled out by the hazards. So over here, like you can see, the guy matched 5 balls, he got 3 runs, and so on. So moving forward, there were some clear expectations that we had set out to achieve. And what we wanted with the game was that we wanted to achieve short and mid-term retention. That means we weren't really planning on holding to the player for months and months together. That wasn't our goal. The second thing was that we wanted to deliver around roughly 2 weeks worth of content before we could push out more content. And we wanted to include some special levels so that the player does not get bored over time. So speaking of which, before we talk about the numbers and the metrics and the kind of lessons we learned, I would like to take you guys through our design phase and what really started it all. So here is an early prototype that we were tinkering around with in the studio. This is a Unity prototype that I cooked up very quickly, and it essentially has basic match 3 mechanics. And it has some basic levels. It has a cricket-based rule set where you have a certain amount of balls and a target that you have to achieve. We also put in a small little dev console where people in the studio could play around with the values with and experiment things with. So this really helped us validate if the match 3 mechanic and the cricket-based rule set was working out for us or not, and it kind of did. So our takeaways from the design phase were that we had need for elements. Now, obviously, playing square little grid with some colored balls will be fun for some time, but it won't keep you hooked for long. So we decided that we wanted to put in some elements. Now, if you might have played Candy Crush or whatever, there are a lot of conventional elements that a lot of match 3 puzzlers share. So we decided that we wanted to not burden the player with anything new. Because the cricket-based fiction itself was a lot to take. And we wanted to add something we like to call as puzzle levels in our game. Puzzle levels are essentially unique levels that have solutions that that follow a specific pattern. So at that time, Tanmay Chinchkar, he was working with us. He came up with the idea of having puzzle levels, and all the designers in the studio, we really got excited about having those in our game, and we were making those and sharing those like crazy, and we thought that the players would really love those. So we started off gauging as to what accounts for difficulty in a game like this. To begin with, I think the most obvious thing is the number of colors. Since you can only match balls which are of the same color, having more colors on a fixed grid will mean that it will be more fragmented and you will not be able to make long chains and thereby not be able to score more runs. It's of course the grid layout. As you can see over there are two T-junctions that are really breaking the grid apart, and it really makes it difficult for the player to make longer chains. And then of course there is the run rate, which is a simple mathematical formula, target by balls. So in a case like this, you would need a run rate of 3 to win the game elegantly. You have wickets, so you lose wickets once you activate some hazards on the field. So your wickets are essentially your chances against those. And there are some special elements that I would like to discuss in the next slide. So you have a friend called as the proximity cleaner. It blows things around itself. There are around 8 tiles around each ball on the grid. It will blow things up for you. Blocker is probably what you want to blow up with using the proximity cleaner. It's essentially a dead tile which you cannot connect with any color. So having too many of those on the board will not really do you any good. You have rainbow balls, which will help you connect 2 different colors. So if I have been connecting 3 red balls so far, and I'm out of red balls, I can just go to the rainbow ball and start connecting any other color I wish. You have this classic time bomb element where every time you make a move, it counts down 1 number for you, and if it reaches 0, you will lose a wicket. So having too many of these will of course hurt your chances at winning. And lastly, one of our favorite elements was the wrist shot. It's an all or nothing gamble where if it could give you a 6 or it could get you bowled out. So you might use it in desperate situations, and it really is a fun thing to play with. So moving forward, after having discussed the kind of level design concepts that we had implemented and discussed during our design phase, what kind of tools did we use to actually put them into the game? So one of the first things I would like to discuss with you guys is dynamic level updates. Now our game architecture, our engineers made it so that we can actually upload levels on the server, and the game client would automatically download those for you. So we don't actually need to push out a client update. So there will be no Google Play update if we want to say add more levels or change the difficulty, and if we are seeing that a lot of players are losing at certain levels. So there would be no code red for us as such. This was made possible through level plists. Now plists are essentially Apple's version of XML. This is what our typical level looks like. This is a screenshot of how level 1 is defined inside of a plist. You can see a lot of variables have been defined already, and to be quite frank, it's very cumbersome and it's a very complicated data structure. So what we decided was that since we wanted to make around 45 to 60 levels, it would be, and we had a time limitation of around 3.5 months, I guess. We decided that we wanted a better tool to edit these, so I came up with this idea of having an in-house level design tool. Let me take you through it. This is made in Unity. It browses a folder for plist files. It will let you browse the levels inside a plist. It will let you say change the color, number of colors. It will of course, let you edit the optional objectives. Like over here, we have a few. Then you can change any variable you want for a certain level. Then you can obviously paint the grid with whatever predetermined balls you want, or keep it all random. You can paint some friendly things like the proximity cleaner, or you could just change the grid layout by adding some empty spaces. So if I don't like whatever I've done, I can clear the grid, or I could go to another level, copy the layout of that level, and use it as a base for my current level. So all in all, we had around 5 level designers working on this game, and over the lifetime of the production, we have made around 60 levels. We had made a lot more, only 60 of those made it to the actual game. So moving on, we headed for the launch. We had designed the game, we made the content, now time for launch. So did we meet our expectations? That's the question. So here's what we got. Only a handful of people actually completed all the levels within the first month. And that was a very good thing for us, because we were scared that people might run out of content. Yes, a few of our friends actually went to Facebook. They were giving us screenshots of, hey, I finished your game, I want more levels. But those are like outliers. An average player was not really able to burn through the entire content, and that was a very good thing. However, our retention was the problem at hand, and that was our D1 was strong and D7 was unsatisfactory. Now, to give you guys a quick primer on what retention is, Retention is basically the core metric you want to watch out for in a free-to-play game. Like, if 100 people install your game on day 0, how many of those guys come back on day 1? So if 50 guys out of the 100 guys came back on day 1, that means your D1 retention was 50%. And this is what any, say, investor or a product guy would ask you, what is your retention numbers like? And D7 is, in a similar way, how many people came back on day 7. So our D7 number was not so good, and we had a hunch. So our hypothesis was that our core gameplay is fun because no one would come back to your game if they did not fundamentally like the game. They won't come back the next day. They would just straight away uninstall it or never come back. And since the game is made out of 2 parts, we had a bare bones game with no retention mechanics like daily bonus or notifications or anything like that. If the core gameplay is not fun, then it has to be the content that you're giving to the player. And that would be the culprit for our low D7. So we decided to investigate. We had some analytics built in, and we ran some numbers. Now this line graph over here is a drop-off chart for how many. Okay. Is a drop-off chart of how many players were leaving our game at what point. So right at level 1, you can see there are the maximum number of people, and till level 20 there were more, but till level 20 we were losing most of our people. So if you can notice that there are some peaks and troughs, and level 7, 11 and 15 were being the troublemakers over here. And we noticed that by level 15 most of our user base was already out of the game. And that's not a good thing from design or product perspective. That's really not a good thing. So we decided to run a correlation between level difficulty and the kind of retention numbers we were getting from certain levels, and we did, I think, find a culprit. Some levels were very, very difficult for the players, and